Okay, so this video is going to try and do a very, very simple thing, namely a hello world in traditional HTML and a kind of a two-page app in traditional HTML versus one done in Angular or Ionic. Okay, so this is as going to be super simple. This may be too simple for some of you, in which case ignore it and go on to the next one or go on a few on. So I'm going to be using, by the way, I'm using Visual Studio Code because it's probably one of the nicest editors for this kind of development, largely because it's also got a terminal built in. If I go to terminal, new terminal, so here you've got in your terminal, you've got a kind of a fully functioning DOS command prompt, and so that makes things very, very easy, and I think the equivalent is available for Mac and Linux as well. So that's why I'm going to be using this. So let's kind of start by going to opening a folder. So go to open folder. Now I've created a folder called node dev, and I'm going to create a thing called tryout here. Select folder. It's a nice a way to organize concept of development. So you can either do it by folder or by workspace, etc. So I'm going to open the terminal again, and then it'll be actually in the folder I'm currently in. Okay, so if I was doing just the most basic hello world in HTML, all I would do was a new file, and I'm going to say HTML body h1 hello world. Okay, and then h1, and then I'm going to close body, and then I'm going to close HTML, and then I'm going to correct the error I made slightly before. I'm going to click that. I'm going to save it. Save as index.html. Notice it's kind of quite nicely gone straight into the file into the folder that I'm working in. Click save, and if I open that that folder, so here it is, index.html, and there it is. There's hello world. Now, if I'm going to do that in Angular, it's going to be slightly different. So what we do is you go to the parent folder of where you want to create your Angular project. So if I go now back into Visual Studio Code, I'm in tryout. I'm going to now go up a level, cd -- okay, into the node dev folder. Actually, no, I want to be in the. Actually, I'll stay in the tryout folder, cd tryout. I'll use this as my parent folder for the other kind of experiments I'm going to do. And at this point, to create an Angular project, you type in ng new, and let's call it hello world. Okay. Very often, actually, you'll see as a kind of that they have lots of hyphens in Angular as a sort of, I don't know why, it's a stylistic thing. Let's call it hello-world. Okay, that will create a project. Now, as your first question is, would you like Angular routing? Now, I will gradually kind of like introduce you to Angular routing, because this is a thing which will again kind of mess with your head when you first see it. But I'll gradually introduce you to it, and we'll just say yes for now. Okay, even though in a hello world I'm not going to be doing any navigation, so I don't really need it. It says which style should we like to use, and you've got a choice of CSS, less, stylus, etc., etc. We'll stick with the traditional one, CSS. So I'll just press return on that, and then what it does is it creates a lot of kind of files, as well as just adding in all of the various things necessary to run an Angular kind of app. So there's quite a lot, in fact, to be honest, of stuff that comes with it. So we'll just have to. I'll just pause the recording a little while this completes. So eventually, after it's finished, it'll have created a subfolder. If I now do a dir on this folder, you'll see now I've got a subfolder called Hello World, and that, for all intents and purposes, is our Angular project. So let's now open that folder in Visual Studio. So go to Open Folder. There's Tryout, and there's Hello World. Let's go into that one. Notice it completely starts you off with a Git source control as kind of default out of the box. We'll select when we don't want to select the folder, actually Git. So let me just want to select the Hello World folder. That's all we want. Okay, and so there we go. Click select folder, and once you've done that, you'll see that we've got there's our hello world. We've got this folder, very important folder called source, where everything important happens, and then very below that you've got app, and you've got all these other folders here. So what does all this stuff mean? Well, in reality, it's kind of, although the initial file is going to be index.html, that's only if you like the very lightest of placeholders. What it does is it automatically says that app component.html is your default starting screen, if you like. If you look in app module.ts, you'll see that it's set up for a browser. It's got an app routing, which controls all navigation, is in this folder. App routing module. You've got these imports are sort of either directly connected to the Angular system or are relative to the file that's currently being thing. So this is saying, importing a class called app routing module from a file called app routing module. Notice there's no TS there, but it's actually, it means it's taking its stuff from this file here. Okay, approuting module.ts. Okay, and it's taking app component from app component, which is this one, app component.ts. Okay, and you'll notice in app component it's already given it a default title of hello world. Now, and this is an important concept in Angular of the thing is a component. So index.html is just really a placeholder, and it has a default component called app component. And this has an HTML file associated with it, a CSS file associated with it, a TS meaning TypeScript file, which is essentially TypeScript is a more typed and more rigorous implementation of JavaScript, essentially. We could go into more details on that, but it's probably best if I don't at the moment. And you've got this Word file, which to be honest, at my stage of Angular knowledge, I don't even know what that does. So, and there's our app routing. At the moment, we've got any routing, because routing is for navigation. Okay, and when I show you our first Ionic app, this will become more clear. Okay, so we've got all these various things. So if I wanted to make Hello World appear, at the moment, what would happen is you'd actually see all of this. Okay, which is the default stuff which comes with any new Angular app. Okay, now the question becomes, I suppose, is how do you see what's in any Angular app? Well, what you do, if you go into the terminal, and the terminal should default to our root app, you type in this command ngserve, ngserve. Okay, now this also might be a bit unfamiliar to you in terms of in previous programming environments where you probably had to press something like compile or do something, and then you would actually see what you're actually displaying. What you do in Angular and Ionic is that you run this command ngserve, or Ionic, I think it's Ionic serve, and what that does is it does its if you like, its compilation as such. And then what is this now says live development server is listening on this address. Okay, so you can then go to this address. So I'm going to click on it. Okay, and hopefully that's going to open, control click, that should open my browser on that address. So there it is. And then when I go there, as you see, there's localhost 4200. You're given this page here, which if I go back now to Visual Studio Code is essentially all of this, right? So this is all thing. But now watch this. This is quite interesting. So what I'm now going to do is turn this into hello world here. So I'll leave this router outlet thing because it's don't want to mess with that right now. I'm just going to select all of that, delete it, and then I'm going to just type in h1 hello world, and I'm going to save that. And you'll notice the moment I save, it automatically does a compilation. And what should happen at this point, it should automatically refresh what is in my browser. And if you go now here, 4200, it does hello world. Let me just do that a bit more. Hello world. I type in everyone. Control S, save, does a quick compilation. And now in my browser, hello world everyone. So when you're doing development in Angular or in Ionic, you set up this serve thing, and then every time you do any kind of save, it will recompile and then it will actually show what you've actually done. So there's the very simplest of apps that you could possibly imagine, Hello World. Although let's just kind of you'll realize how much how heavy is the amount here. So there's my original Hello World in HTML, which is 1K in size. If I right click on Hello World and now do properties, you'll find that now has got 282 megabytes. So there is a substantial overhead in using Angular or Ionic or anything like that. You get these very large development environments, and so you might wonder, what is the benefit of that? So let's now go on to another really super simple demonstration. Next is I'm going to do a page with some navigation in it, and for that I'm going to use one of the Ionic templates, because that one you'll get a sense of how navigation is done in Ionic.